E-commerce entrepreneurs, are you currently running YouTube ads and not seeing the best results? Well, look no further. In this video, I'm going to show you the exact strategies I use for my YouTube ads clients to scale their campaigns. All right, so I'm going to get started with YouTube ads best practice from Google themselves. So in this video presentation, I'm going to be going over exploring creative experiment opportunities, Google creative fundamentals, action-focused ads so you can drive more sales, experimentation, and then the different creative tools and resources that you can use within the Google suite. So now into exploring creative experimentation opportunities. So first you have to understand, like, customers nowadays, they really consume on a different level where you can't really build up to your ad. You have to essentially start off strong and have different peaks and valleys to keep them engaged the whole entire time. And often people will have the conversation of like, okay, people only like bumper ads or short ads. Or if you have a very long video ad, you can sell higher ticket because it's more compelling. Either can work. It just depends on who your audience is. So you have to just understand who your customer or consumer is. So here I have an example of using visual language as the first opportunity to really connect with your customers here. And this was done by KitKat.
Indulge in rich caramelized hazelnut, delicious coconut, and smooth double chocolate. Break from the ordinary with the new Kit Kat All About You.
Yeah, so this is the first opportunity, which is essentially framing. So this shows how there's like various images that show up on screen. The framing is very tight, so it's not very broad out. You can see in the beginning, it's very close, and you can like see every texture of the actual product. So this is something that can be done in post-production to really frame your shots more tightly and keep people more engaged. If that's what your target audience likes. Opportunity number 2 is pacing.
Come on!
Bangles on the rhythm, yes.
Yes, you get the idea. This is very quick to the point, visual language to really tell a story of people essentially engaging in a soccer match. Keeping the tempo very quick. It's not starting off slow. It's emerging like in the action, and that has different jump cuts up and down. So this is another editing tactic you can use to have more engaging video ads. Next, we have supers.
Perfect crunch, perfectly gooey. Dr. Fork.
So this type of editing style is really good when you want to really have voiceover in a very superimposed way so that people can really understand, get the message that you're trying to go across. And this is great for bumper ads, like in this example. You want the audio to obviously match the text, so you want to make sure your post editing is very on point with that. So essentially, like I've been mentioning here, that we have 2 different types of story arcs. There's a traditional story arc where it's like starting off slower, building up, having the peak, and then dropping down. And this is good for like TV or books. But nowadays, people won't even pay attention to YouTube or any short form or long form video on the internet unless it has an emerging story arc where it starts off strong, has a bigger peak, valley, unexpected peak, and then drop. So you want to focus or re-edit if you have TV creative, or if you have any other type of creative, repurpose it or create it specifically for YouTube so it has an emerging story arc. And here is an example of emerging story arc.
Diana, fighting does not make you a hero.
What if I promise to be careful?
So you can see how it was essentially brought off at a super high peak, another peak, and now it's actually emerging and like bringing the story together to bring context. Just so people are hooked in that first like 30-second span. That's something you want to do in your editing of your videos or the storyboard. And here are some other hooks that you can test with emotion.
Got a bedwetter?
That's me!
Tide Rescue eliminates tough odors.
Yeah, so you can see from this video, it's like a quick bumper ad as well, but it really hooks people with humor, where it's like a little kid that's saying he's almost like proud to be a bedwetter. But you can use different types of emotional levers depending on your brand. So it could be action, humor, intrigue, or like sad emotional type of levers. You can really get creative with this, hence why there's so many different arts to this, and it's not just an exact science. Next is hooking with people. Yeah, so you can see with this type of ad in just marketing in general, when you have people's faces on a landing page or in advertisements, you build more of a connection and people are scientifically just more hooked in. So you can just have some of your target customers or test different demographics in your targeting section, which I'll talk about later more, to really hook people in the most engaging parts and the most crucial parts, which is the first 5 to 10 seconds. Next, we have go short with bumper ads. So you can really go deep with one message.
We went on vacation with a toe dipper and left with a cannonballer.
Yeah, so this is from Airbnb. Essentially, they could be telling a sequence of different ads where they just have a singular message. They're not talking about their pricing, how they have flexibility. It's more telling the story of one kid that essentially was shy before and now he's just jumping in the pool. So you can tell or focus on a singular message or a sequence of messages depending on your strategy. And it doesn't have to be high production at all. It can just be a singular short clip. All right, now I have three other ads here. So every single one is part of an experiment where they had the generic ad, then they tested the copy, and then they tested the copy and visual for their target audience. You can watch here.
Cover girl, I am what I make up.
Yep, so that was a control, essentially a woman coming out of a car, and they really wanted to focus on like the girl boss type of segment and really have like the makeup align with that. So that was the first one, woman coming out.
Cover girl, I am what I make up.
There they just changed the copy from boss period, not like a boss. So that's pretty common where it's like a lady boss or like a boss, but they're basically positioning themselves saying, no, you're a boss period. It doesn't matter what your gender is.
Cover girl, I am what I make up.
Yeah, so they just tuned this ad for audience, and there's essentially a lot of the same clips here and just updating the copy, and the copy alone change performed the best. You don't have to reshoot an entire different clip, or you can repurpose different clips if you have a longer shot. But in this case, it worked for them. Okay, now opportunity number 4. So you want to consider having creative systems. So you want to think how you can have scalability with your creative, testing different formats, lengths, and arrange them in different ways so that you can tune them for other audiences, have more engaging hooks, or really have an emerging story. You want to think about that when creating systems in content at scale. So you can see there's a few different scaling systems here where they essentially have a longer form video ad, but they break out different pieces into snacks and bites of the entire meal creative, which is like 60 seconds or more. So we can watch the first one here. And this is for a speaker.
I wish I was a little bit. I was a baller. I wish I had a. I would call it. Wish I had a rabbit in a hat with a bat and a 6'4" ball. I wish I was like 6'9" so I could get with Leo. She could just go.
Yeah, so this was essentially a short clip from the greater ad of a speaker that doesn't have you get notifications when you're listening to music, so you can essentially be focused, be in the moment, and not just be interrupted. So that was their snack ad. And now we're going to talk about their bite.
Rush it by.
Sounds better on big speakers.
I could see that.
No longer optional for us to be honest. Went to the show, sitting in the front row in a black tracksuit.
Unable to pair.
You gotta be kidding me.
Wish I was a little bit. Wish I was a ball.
So So you can see they had the clip there from the first snack and they incorporated it in the bite. But essentially, they have a bunch of different clips telling the story of multiple different scenarios where people will essentially benefit from this product in a humorous way. So they have different hooks there. So this is a great way to repurpose and have opportunity in your creative. Russified. Okay, opportunity number 5. So drive action with ads. So essentially, kind of like how I mentioned, you want to have a simple singular message when creating a creative. You don't want to just jam pack a bunch of different messages for different audiences. You want to focus on that one message, one value prop, and like there can be a feature or a reason to believe about that product, which is a much better way to go about it, and just have sequences on top of that. So when you narrow your focus on this, you can be more strategic in the audiences you want to reach, and the opportunities are just easier to manage rather than having a one big ad talking to everybody with a bunch of different messaging, and it can be very confusing. All right, now on to building for objectives. So depending on if it's a branded ad, a consideration ad, or an action ad, it will change what you focus on. So for example, action ads will be very product focused, and essentially it will be the selling point. Consideration ads will just talk about, it won't be mainly on the product, it will be talking about the people, and the product will kind of be like the sidekick. And then awareness ads will just essentially talk about a problem that they could have or they currently have and just make them aware that there's a solution. So you want to have ads specific for the objective that you want to tackle. And here, Monday.com has a good example of these ads with different objectives.
Monday.com is a team management tool that changed my life because my day used to be wasted on the marketing meeting, carefully reminding Jessica of her deadline, and searching for the latest version. Is that final or final I mean it? Did I accidentally sign both Jessicas to the same project again? One day I started using Monday.com and everything changed. Jessica can keep track of her own deadline, and I get to do my own work. Management without the chaos. Go to Monday.com and start your free trial today.
Yeah, so this first ad had more an emotional objective. I would say this is a consideration ad because this could be targeting HR people that are, or project managers that already have this problem, so they're problem aware. But this exact angle or feature of their product is poking more at the emotion. And then the second ad here could be more action focused because it's really highlighting the product.
Manage your project in an easy, visual way with Monday.com. This is an item, lead, status, and timeline. An item can be anything you want it to be: a task, or a client, a project, or a blog post. Track all your progress at a glance and manage your team, projects, or business with powerful tools that are actually easy to use. Go to Monday.com and start.
Yep, so this is skippable. This would be more of the objective of getting people to start their free trial. So this would be more action consideration type of ad. Okay, now finding success in the unexpected. So often I'll have clients always say like they need a big production. Not necessarily. You can have different types of ads that you maybe think wouldn't work, whether it's like UGC content, user-generated content, or it's just something completely different than what you usually test. You always want to experiment with this outlier content and make it specific for the objective, because there's obviously like no silver bullets. Some audiences might connect with this and you can like scale and really have cheaper leads or sales when you hit on an experiment like this. So here's an example of Wix testing with like an alternative type of ad.
Oh my god! What the? It won! Did it won?
It's like the slot machines. We're in Vegas.
What? we have to. That's 1 minute, bro. 1 minute.
So you can see here, this is more almost like a low production ad where it's almost like you're in someone's house and speaking to the benefit of their end consumer, of like someone starting a Wix store and it's just blowing up and them getting a bunch of sales. And instead of having like a high production, they just showed almost like UGC or user generated content. in saying, hey, look at this person, they look like you, and their store's blowing up, look at their family, the emotional appeal. And this ad did really good for them. So you always want to test or have some budget for testing for alternative types of ads. Okay, so yeah, you should really have to think about the objective when testing these different types of creative. So here, there's another creative and audience matching strategy. So you can lower your CPAs when creating completely different creative based on the exact audience you're targeting. Here, Louis Vuitton had two different types of creative for two different types of demos. So this ad worked really good for females, and they wanted to test this other style of ad, which happened to work better for males. Yeah, so to wrap it up in like key takeaways on that section is you want to have visual language. So you want to look at the opportunities that you can implement immediately in your current creative or just like cutting up video. You want to start off strong and like build for attention with your audience. So essentially use the emergent story arc and not the traditional where it starts off slow and builds up. You want to start high, shoot higher, have a peaks and valleys so people stay engaged. Have creative that's specific for your audience and the different angles they want to go for. Create systems where you can do scalable creative and test a lot of different things and a lot of different like types of assets. And then last but not least, drive your action with ads depending on your goals. Okay, now onto like the fundamentals. Now that you saw some examples, we can really break it down and like go back to the basics of the core when creating these ads, some fundamentals you want to follow and best practices. So like I said, you want to build for attention. YouTube's a sound on platform, meaning people are always listening and they're willing to pay attention longer. So you want to make sure that you're using audio cues, have voiceovers, or have music in your actual ads. And build for mobile. That's just for any advertising platform. You want to make sure you're optimizing for mobile. And then some of the ABCDs, I've talked about this before, but essentially you want to have the attention, hook people early, have your brand throughout in contextually helpful ways, connect with people and have emotional benefits on your features or tell a story that they're already having, and then finally tell them to take action. You want to storyboard these and have them incorporated in your creative strategy. So you can see here are some examples. So like attention was like keep bright visuals contracted, jump right to the action. Branding, have a lot of different branding features you can use, show up quick, early. Connection, you can like humanize the story, make sure it's simple so you're not doing a bunch of different messaging because people can't connect with that, and then have a call to action at the end. So to improve your creative effectiveness to boost performance, you want to have that immersive story, focus on the traditional arcs, use sound, and optimize for mobile. So you can see just more in depth on like some of Google's examples and best practices of how to focus and scale creative here. So branding early and often. So you always you can have reinforced audio, show your brand throughout, which I've talked about before, and have a wide palette of branding elements. You can see more in depth here, how this can really help your brand lift and brand goals. And then for connection here, you can see more in depth of different examples of how people can think or feel about your brand depending on the message that you focus on or how you humanize your story, and depending on the audience, it can always change. And then finally, taking action. So you can see there's a lot of research behind this, just asking people to take call to action, whether subscribe, check out your website, learn more. You can also supercharge these with audio as well. So for action-focused ads, it's similar to all the other ones, but you want to jump in quickly, get to the heart of the story, have supers and audio and visuals and bright contrast. Make sure your branding is not taking away. It's not the star. It's mostly like a product-focused type of deal. It's a selling moment and not a brand building moment. So when you're thinking about action-focused ads, you want to make sure that your brand is there, but it's mostly focused on your product and solution. And for connection with action focused, you just want to be precise and upfront about what you're offering. It's not really like branding and awareness or consideration. where it's more fluffy. You just want to avoid overselling. Just say specifically how this helps the audience specifically with their problem, and just skip major claims. You're focused on the selling moment. You just want to be super clear and concise with your message. And then for the actual call to action, you just want to say exactly what you want your viewers to do, and you can reinforce this and have voiceover to help this as well. So you can see the different ABCDs of action focused ads here. All right, now onto experimentation. So experimentation is huge, kind of like how I mentioned, where you always want to be A/B testing. You never know when the marketplace is changing. Your audience has different feelings about creative frequency, where they might be seeing a creative too much and not taking action. And this is the biggest lift, is when you actually change the ad creative, not the branding or the media buying portion. It's mostly when the creative is changed. You can see here with the data from research studies. So creative is king in terms of video creative. You want to focus on always thinking of different angles and hooks you can take to really improve this, because this will ultimately help your business. And so there's different types of creative tests you can run. So it can be like pre-production. So essentially thinking of a different structure you want to tell your story, have a different emerging story hook, have different peaks and valleys, have a different call to action. How you want to focus on the brand, personalization, or the actual storyline. And then post-production, you can change like the text, like we saw in these other examples. You can make the ad longer or shorter if it's going to be a meal, snack, or bite. Different framing, zooming in and out, having super overlays, brightness, audio, adding music, or changing the call to action. So this is different types of things you can test to improve the creative in an experiment. And you can kind of see if it's pre or post-production. And now into audiences you can experiment. So you can do the general age, gender, placement, or topic as standard demographics. When doing an experiment, so you don't have to change the creative, you can just target to somebody else and see if they like a certain creative better, and then optimize based off of that. Or you can get more advanced with like affinity audiences, what people are interested in, what they're in market to buy, custom affinity if they visit certain types of sites, if they're similar to your customers that bought before, like similar audiences, or more detailed demographics like certain jobs they have and whatnot. And you can look at your Google Analytics data too to look for different audiences to test that have high conversion rates. So you can see here, these are some examples of experiments. So narrative A versus narrative B, audiences, advanced audiences versus demographic segmentation, see which audiences resonated with the creative more, a TV creative. So some brands just have a TV creative they want to repurpose on YouTube. So they might A/B test that versus the ABCDs that I just talked about, and then customized creative versus generic. And now you want to really measure success too with video creative. So for awareness campaigns, you want to look at ad recall and lift, total awareness, total reach, or unique reach. So you want to reach as many people as possible and monitor if brand lift is actually being done. Consideration. So there's different metrics for consideration lift or favorability lift. And then action, which I talked about more, is purchases and purchase lift intent. And here are some best practices with experiments as well. So you want to start with a hypothesis. So like I hypothesize that people that are in market for football cleats are better to target than people that have the custom intent of being a football coach or something like that. You only want to test one variable at a time, so you don't want to have multiple because that might skew your results. And you want to make sure you have enough spend in the actual video campaign so you can be statistically significant. And you want to assign one campaign to each experiment arm. So you have one video, one targeting, one campaign versus the same but for a different targeting. So you can see experimentation with creative is the best way to essentially scale your brand, clients, or retails. All right, now it's some creative tools and resources that you can use in Google to help you hit some of these goals that they have in these documentations. So when navigating the tools, you want to really spark curiosity, create essentially creative that Google offers you to essentially have a strategy that resonates with your consumers on YouTube specifically, and not just for like TV or Facebook. And then you can also produce within the Google suite and then measure using Google's different creative tools to optimize and scale creative. So the first one here is video sequencing. So there's different video sequencing tools, whether you want to have a bunch of different bumper ads that tell a story. And I'll talk about the different sequences you can do as well, but this can help your audience have almost like a video funnel, where if they view ad A and don't click, then they see ad B. But if they do click, they'll see a different type of remarketing ad if they don't buy. So you can have different video sequences and funnels using Google's Creative Suite. So you can see here like the lead in. So you start with a short video that teases the story and then have a long form video. Then here the direct shot, so you can have multiple highlights of your brand in this sequence. Then here you can have like a mini series, so break up your story into like bite-sized 30-second videos. Then you can have a tease, amplify, and echo, which you have a short teaser to your story. Then you have the entire story and then like a reminder. And then here you can have a long form ad and then just a reminder. So these are different sequences frameworks that you can use in Google's Creative Suite. And here are some different checklists that you can use when you're actually creating for like production. So hooking people in the first 5 seconds, surprise, human focus, you can break the fourth wall, have enticing language, leveraging audio early, making it pop on mobile, so you have different types of shots, branding with intention, so it's not just like you popping up your logo everywhere, and you want to be flexible, essentially, when you're creating a video, so you're not just putting yourself on a very, very tight deadline. And then you can see the post-production, which is all about the emerging story arc, so you have multiple peak shifts and more story for people that want it. Now onto the Ads Creative Studio. So this is a very interesting tool within Google. So essentially, it helps you be more scalable by having algorithmically different types of creative depending on the audience. So if you, instead of having to swap out creative every single time, if someone's a certain demographic, it will give them a different type of messaging or image or hook in the creative. Or if they're in a different language, different currency, visuals, or a different offer, depending on where they are. So this helps you reach a more targeted audience at scale. You can A/B test creative, make multiple variations among all your target audiences, so it's just more customized. And this just helps your creative team or you just test more and just leverage this tool. Next, into creative analytics, so you want to measure the actual video engagement, if people are dropping off at certain times or if they're peaking at certain times, so you can see second by second if people skipped our ad, or if people that are skipping, are they coming back later, and just having more brand reach as well. And so essentially these are the different use cases for all these tools. So video creative analytics is when you want to see retention curves and creative contribution to the overall campaign performance, because video might not always be the final driver of a sale. So you want to see how it engaged and help your other campaigns. And then for creating new assets, you can use the video creation tools on Google Ads, which is in the back end of Google. So images, text, and branding to be used on YouTube. And then if you want to actually produce new creative, you can use Ads Creative Studio for specific audience at scale. And then finally, Video Experiments tool in YouTube to see which audiences resonate the most with certain videos. Thanks for watching the video, and if you found it helpful, leave a like and subscribe, and any questions you have below. And if you want me to personally run your YouTube ads, look in the description for the Calendly link and book a free one-on-one consultation.